Okay, I'm going to cut you off the phone, okay?
Okay.
You're on. Oh, wait a minute.
Can they? I don't hear anything.
I don't know if they can. Let's make sure. Let's make sure technically we're on and he can hear.
Should we not be hearing something?
We should be, yeah.
I thought they were ready to go.
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear us?
Call the guy back. Yes, sir. Right, I'm on. I'm back on now. You can hear? But we can't hear you guys.
I don't hear anything.
What does he need to talk about? Just to let him start talking, or?
Well, yeah, but I'm going to have to hear from them.
Well, how does he hear?
How do I hear from them?
How does he
Their
hear?
questions, their comments?
Just questions or comments, how does he hear? Okay, they just want you to...
Just want to do Q&A, we can do that as well.
Yeah, well, I thought, no, that's what I thought. I was anxious to let you guys ask questions and comment, and I'll talk, of course, but
Okay. Questions for Sarah White?
Well, let me start off by saying to all of you there, hello and best wishes. I wish I could be with you. I want to thank John Judge and everyone else who organized another COPA conference. We go back a long time, and I always enjoyed being there. I hope I'll be there with you guys in 2013 for the big 50th anniversary celebration. But for today, John, if it's okay with you, I would suggest that you all open it up with questions that you have. JFK, RFK, Martin Luther King, other political assassinations and events, or cases involving forensic science, if you wish.
I have a question.
Let me put it on the other phone. Let me go back to the other phone. It's better.
You were quoted in a book about the death of Kurt Cobain, and I've been interested in researching political positions and their death.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that. You're asking about the Kurt Cobain death?
Yes.
And what specific question do you have regarding that death?
I can't remember how you quoted regarding the person that all that saying that he was offered $50,000 when the person being set off, and then died several days after saying that on film, predicting himself film about Kurt Cobain.
I'm sorry, I don't recall.
Forensics of Kurt Cobain dying from 3.5 times.
I don't recall the specifics, and
I mean, we can pass this question up. I just wanted to...
no, I don't
He's supposed to die 3.5 times the amount of heroin that should have killed the common person coming at it.
Yes, well, you know, when you deal with deaths due to drugs with addicts, you're not dealing with fixed numbers and quantitative certitudes. Vary greatly from one person to another. It depends on the degree of habituation and tolerance that the individual has acquired. One of the first cases I ever dealt with when I started at the Baltimore Medical Examiner's Office in my forensic pathology fellowship was a former all-pro tackle, Big Daddy Gene Lipscomb, who played with the Baltimore Colts and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it was amazing that the level was not very high. We came to learn that that might have been his first or one of his earliest experiences, and he took an amount that you would have thought would have been safe for someone who weighed, as I recall, about 300 pounds. But as a novitiate, his body just was not ready to handle the heroin. It's unpredictable. The other thing that makes it so undefinable is that you do not necessarily die with drugs at the apogee, at the highest point. Many people die while the drug level is considerably lower than what you know and can calculate it would have been sometime before. It plays out with respiratory depression, with cardiac arrhythmia that can set in even after the drug has been significantly metabolized and broken down.
One last thing, someone else wants to ask a question. They say there was a constant amount of heroin that would kill the severe addict in the body, and all the ones were put back in their cases, lift up, and then shot his head off. And do you think that scenario is likely?
I'm not sure if I quite heard. Are you asking me if somebody takes drugs and then goes on and, or in this particular case, and then shot himself? Is that likely? Is that your question? Well, somebody can do that. You don't become unconscious in a moment from an injection of a drug. It's got to be absorbed, taken up to the brain, and then acted on through the brain's control of the heart and lungs. So death does not ensue in seconds, and certainly a person can do anything after injecting himself if he so desires. It would be a rare thing for somebody to do that and then shoot himself, because if you're attempting to commit suicide and you're going to shoot yourself, why would you first take drugs? It doesn't seem to make sense.
Thanks a lot.
Should we use the other phone? Maybe easier.
Yeah.
Let's turn the other phone on. Let me call it back now.
We're going to switch to the other phone here. Just a moment. Just a moment, please.
Have him pick it up.
Pick up that phone there, please.
The one he's on.
The one you're on.
How do you view the death of Dorothy Kilgallen?
That was a highly suspicious death. As you know, she had indicated to her readers and others that she was going to break open the case. I think she had interviewed Ruby and others, and she had a tremendous amount of information. She was one of the premier gossip columnists, and while people look down upon them from a literary sociological standpoint, that does not mean that they weren't great repositories of information early on. They had people that were planted all over. Some perhaps they were paying, and others just wanted to be sycophants of a Walter Winchell or a Dorothy Kilgallen or what have you. So I think that her death was very, very suspicious, and although I was not involved and do not have her autopsy, it is my opinion that it was not a coincidence. I think that the deaths that occurred around that time, and they were studied too, I think, by a London actuarial of all the deaths that occurred, of the people who were involved in the investigation and so on, that for those deaths to have occurred in that period of time, the odds came out to be in the hundreds of millions, if not higher, to one. And while that may not be hard scientific evidence, it's as hard just about as DNA is. So I think that Dorothy Kilgallen's death was highly suspicious. But remember, in those early days, everybody except a few people had bought into the Warren Commission report. Oswald had done it, he had done it alone, so Oswald was dead, and it was all over, and nobody was looking into other possibilities and extensive ramifications of that massive conspiracy.
Thanks, Daryl.
Question about Jerry Sandusky and the DA who disappeared 6 years ago. What's your opinion of that?
I have opined on television in Pittsburgh, and I think a national news release went out from them, not from me. I don't know how much it was picked up, that the death of the Center County District Attorney, where Penn State University is located, certainly is not a coincidence. I always think of a wonderful aphorism that I remember reading once. When you live, as I've said, in Pittsburgh, let's say, or Center County, Pennsylvania, we'll locate this matter geographically in appropriate, correct fashion, and you hear a bird chirping outside the window, it is highly, highly unlikely that it is going to be a purple-crested, red-throated cockatoo that flew in from West Africa. It's likely to be a wren or a sparrow or a robin. You have the death of a district attorney who in 1998 chose not to pursue the allegations that have been brought to his attention, did not even convene a grand jury, did not conduct an extensive investigation, and then you have the events that ensued thereafter. As we have come to learn, all this business with Sandusky and his second chance group and all of that stuff was continuing rampantly. We don't know yet how many people were involved. There's no way, if you know anything about law enforcement, that a district attorney in a relatively small county like Center County, Pennsylvania, would not have been aware of every nefarious activity. He could have named every numbers writer, he could have named every prostitute, he could have named every single crime that was going on there, I guarantee you. If not that same day, the next week. If not the next week, the next month. The point I'm making is that by 2005, when Greencard disappeared, suddenly, mysteriously, unaccountably, he would have come to have learned a great deal about what was going on with Sandusky and the whole Penn State sexual debacle. So now, then you have his sudden disappearance, and he was declared dead officially, as you know, about a month ago. There's a 7-year requirement under the Uniform Missing Persons Act that every state has adopted. You have to wait 7 years, and then you can declare somebody dead. For him to disappear suddenly, and since that time, there's been nothing that has come out. There's no kind of financial, romantic, sexual, intra-office scandal, political scandal, nothing of any kind. So there's no question in my mind you are left with a definite relationship of Greencard's disappearance to what's going on at Penn State, what did go on at Penn State. And you have two possible scenarios, suicide or homicide. Suicidal scenario would be, hey, Greencard wakes up and says, you know, finally, I can't live with this any longer. I blew this case in '98. I am so embarrassed, so ashamed of myself, what has been going on, all these little kids having been victimized and so on. If this comes out, I won't be able to live with myself or in this community. I'm going to commit suicide. That's one scenario. The other scenario is that he lets it be known by the time it's 2005, 7 years after his 98 whitewashing, that, man, I can't let this go on anymore. I'm going to blow the whistle. And he lets it be known to whomever that this is going to come out. There's going to be a real open grand jury investigation. We're going to blow this thing wide open, and someone knocks him off. So you can choose the scenario. I can't tell you which it was, but there's no way in the world that Gricar's disappearance, as you know, the car found locked, the DA's cell phone inside the car, then his computers found in the river, his hard drives found in the river, and despite an intensive search, no body or remnant of a body was ever found. Gricar is not on a beach in Thailand or in Brazil or Asuncion, Paraguay. Gricar is dead, and he's dead either by his own hand or by somebody else's hand. That's my take on Gricar.
Morning, Dr. Webber. Nice to be in contact with you again. I always wondered about the book that absolutely grateful also for the private justice department. What I know that lawyers is horrible. It's a lot of people. Why is the Justice Department so bad at wanting to attack zero class crime? I can understand. So in fact, nothing is so
Well, that's an excellent question, and people have speculated a lot about that. I'll never know, of course, whether or not my long-time involvement with the JFK assassination as an outspoken critic played a role. However, it definitely, in my mind, was not the precipitating factor. The precipitating factor was local politics. It began with the district attorney, Steve Zappala, who was extremely unhappy about my holding open inquest as coroner of Allegheny County in all police-related deaths. And this kept on mounting with intensive antipathy between us, and highlighted by a case, Charles Dixon, an African-American male who died after 13 cops piled on top of him, positional asphyxiation, and so on. And then somehow Zappala made contact with, or was contacted by, a disgraced FBI agent named Bradley Orsini, who had been twice severely, significantly disciplined by his FBI office in New Jersey. For whatever reason, he wasn't cashiered out of the FBI. Certainly he should have been. He was sent out of the Newark office to some remote post in New Jersey, and then in whatever fashion and for whatever reason came to Pittsburgh. Orsini now, his tail between his legs, badly disgraced, and very significantly so. He made contact with the district attorney Zappala, or vice versa. That's the one thing about my matter. I don't know for sure who reached out to whom. In any event, they then packaged it and proceeded, even before the U.S. Attorney's Office was apprised of this, because my attorney called down to the first assistant, with whom he was very friendly, and asked at that time, I was sitting in my office, whether they had launched an investigation against me, and he said not that he knew of. He would check, called back shortly, and said yes, the FBI was conducting an investigation. What happened thereafter is this. The U.S. Attorney, Mary Beth Buchanan, with whom I've been friendly, she had accepted a position on the advisory board of the Cyril H. Wecht Institute of Forensic Science and Law at Duquesne University. We were friends. In fact, when she got a big grant from the Department of Justice and the Attorney General of the United States came in, Ashcroft, she had me stand there on his left, she on his right, as he was announcing this big grant, a small portion of which was going to go to our forensic science lab. But Buchanan was extremely ambitious. She had already passed the point of having a local federal judgeship, a district federal judgeship in her lap. That was a given. She was looking for the Third Circuit, and she was already halfway through the door. One part of her buttocks was sitting on the chair. She needed one more scalp, and that was at a time, remember, that the Republicans were looking for scalps. Remember the 9 good Republican U.S. attorneys that were cashiered out because they were not aggressively pursuing legal actions against incumbent Democratic office holders or major Democratic officials and leaders. So that was the milieu. That was what was going on in America. Mary Beth Buchanan really wasn't so concerned about me in an ad hominem fashion. In fact, the irony of it is that after they announced an 84-count felony indictment, it wasn't a matter of days, it was less than a week, that my attorney was told privately by the U.S. Attorney's Office that if I would plead guilty to one count of 84, that would end it all. I would get probation and it would all be over. That is a matter of record. Everything I tell you, you can repeat, and I'll swear to on a bunch of Bibles hooked up to a bunch of polygraph machines, okay? So then they pursued it, and they thought I would cave, because that's how the U.S. Attorney's offices in America, federal indictments, get 95, 98, 99% success rate, because how many people are going to fight the federal government? Well, for me, not because I was so courageous, but I had no choice. As a physician, as an attorney, I would have been out of business. What was I going to do? Wash dishes, drive a truck, run an elevator? I had no choice. And it's my personality too. I'll give myself some credit for that I wasn't going to roll over and play dead. And so that is what ensued. And as you know, if anybody there is not aware of this, we don't have time to get into the whole case, but suffice it to say that an investigation which began, we came to learn in the late fall of '04, which became public by late January, February of '05, which resulted in an indictment in January of '06, ultimately 3.5 years later resulted in a complete withdrawal of 14 remaining charges. By that time, 70 of 84 charges had been withdrawn without ever having put one witness on the stand. Following the 7-week trial, we just rested our case, and there was a hung jury. And then before the second trial, before that first trial, they had already withdrawn 43 of the 84 counts. That was before the trial began in January of '06. Before then, we had oral arguments with a newly assigned judge. The Third Circuit, 3 conservative Republican judges on their own, we didn't even ask for it, removed the trial judge, saying that the case needed to be looked at with fresh eyes, their phrase, and by, quote, someone with a less vested interest. That's from 3 conservative Republican justices on the Third Circuit. So now, before then, the government moves to withdraw another 27 counts. So now we have the oral arguments before a newly appointed judge. We're down to 14 counts. After the arguments, a couple months later, he issued a 55-page blistering report just ripping the government apart. And then the U.S. Attorney announced withdrawal with prejudice of those 14 remaining counts. It was all political from beginning to end. And it was a heavy price. It cost me, we've estimated, probably in excess of $4 million. So that's the story. I must say, with a smile on my face, and not anything to be boisterous about, but I'm somewhat of a folk hero now in Western Pennsylvania. So maybe you want to spend a few $1 million, and if you can beat the federal government, you can become a big. I'm only sorry that I chose not to run for governor last year in Pennsylvania. I really think I would have won, but that's another long story. I also would have had a divorce action after 50 years of marriage, my wife told me, and my kids would have disowned me. But anyway, I'm fully active, functioning, and thriving in Allegheny County. Thanks for the question.
Hi, Daryl.
John, how you doing?
Thank you for being with us. Thank the neighbor for
Yeah. Thank you, John. I hope all is going well for you guys there, and I wish you well. And keep in touch, John, and we'll.
Well, I wanted to take that question as well, and see if you had any thoughts.
Well, the new book has gotten quite a play as a result of some television programs I've been on the Zayhow case, the woman in California that the local authorities said committed suicide with her hands bound behind her back and a slip knot, her legs tied together, a shirt 3 times over the rope of her neck stuffed into her mouth, hanging nude over a balcony, and so on. A lot of play on Dr. Phil's show and Dr. Drew's show, and so on. From Crime Scene to Courtroom is an excellent book, really, and I'm not pushing it because it means anything financially to me, but it's got Michael Jackson case and Casey Anthony case and Colonel Shue case right there in Texas, and the Brian Jones, the Rolling Stone case, and Carol Gottbaum, the woman from New York that was manhandled and died in the Phoenix airport. It's a marvelous, marvelous book, and I recommend anybody interested in forensic science, whether you have a special interest in Michael Jackson or Casey Anthony or just generally, to get the book. With regard to JFK, John, as far as I know, nothing really dramatic. They keep trying to push this down the American public's throat. Max Holland's latest venture, was it shown last night or is it going to be shown tonight or whatever, in which they're once again attempting to show how the single bullet theory would have been physically possible and so on. I don't care what they do, what they say. Every time I make this presentation and I get 4 people to come up and sit on the stage, 2 being Kennedy and his wife, and Conley and his wife, and show how that bullet would have had to have moved, the audience burst out into laughter. So I don't care what kinds of technological gyrations they employ. The single bullet theory is a total absurdity. And that is the sine qua non, of course, of the Warren Commission's conclusion that Oswald was a sole assassin. And that's before you get into all the other things, not that they are unimportant or that they don't count, but admittedly, a lot of that stuff is arguable, the whole political background and so on, all of which you know. So anyway, I think we got to keep at this. I hope that we do, and I hope that in the years ahead, we may not be around, that the truth will eventually be disclosed about the JFK assassination. It was a political conspiracy. It was the overthrow of the government, and anywhere else in the world, it's labeled for what it was, a coup d'etat, except in America, where everything has to be attributed to one blown nut. Okay, John, thank you. Thanks, John. Take care. Best wishes. Okay, thank you very much.